Hey, you want to see something really scary?
What's your favorite scary movie?
I'm gonna scare the hell out of you.
What was living behind that boy's eyes was purely and simply evil.
They're coming to get you, Barbara.
When there's no more room in hell, the dead will walk here.
What's blood for, if not for shedding?
Welcome to Fright Night.
Welcome back to Jumpscare. I'm Betty.
And I'm Chad.
This week we're covering 1994's Brainscan.
Now I have your attention. Please allow me to introduce myself. My name is Trickster.
What was that film you were watching?
Death, death, death.
Death, death, death.
Part 2.
Oh, Lord.
Michael's seen it.
Go for it, man.
Done it. Played it.
Look, I've played them all.
And just when he thought he'd die of boredom.
Brainscan, the ultimate experience in interactive terror.
Never leave home without it.
You're in the game, man. You're in control.
You must think like a killer. Cover up any clues. Leave no witnesses, no evidence.
A challenge he can't resist.
It was so real. It was sick.
See, I told you, man. I told you it would blow your mind.
A game he can't escape.
There was a grisly murder in the quiet suburban town of Mountview today.
So you did it.
What was on that disc?
It's not a game anymore.
I'm Lieutenant Hayden.
It's real.
It wasn't supposed to be real.
Real, unreal, what's the difference?
I didn't kill the man. I didn't even know him.
You're in this now. You won't survive on your own. You started this, and now you're afraid to finish it, just like you're afraid of everything else.
I won't kill her! Shoot her!
Wait. The witness has to die.
Edward Furlong, Frank Langella, and introducing T. Ryder Smith as the Trickster. Brainscan.
I can't wait to see what you do next.
Oh, anniversary time.
Yes.
Just dawned on me. Did we do that on purpose? Was that a thing that happened?
I don't know. I think we just finally decided we needed to watch this again, so it happened to work out to be the 30th anniversary.
So, the star is Edward Furlong, and we have Frank Langella,
who you may remember as Dracula,
or the antique dealer from The Ninth Gate, or Skeletor from Masters of the Universe.
Have you seen his interviews about that?
No.
Where they're like, why did you do that? He's like,
because he did it for his kids?
Yeah, he's like, because my kids thought it was pretty cool, and I had a blast. He just said he just put on that mask and he's like, I just overacted and went crazy and had a blast.
Yeah, hello. There's only one Skeletor for me, and it's Frank Langella.
Yep.
Now, Amy Hargraves, who now she's still doing things. She was Clay's mom from 13 Reasons Why, which was really popular when it came out.
Oh, yeah.
On Netflix. And Eddie Furlong, if you don't know Eddie Furlong, he's the kid from Terminator 2.
That's all you need to know. And most recently from the most recent Terminator, where he got de-aged and murdered.
Wow, that actually did happen.
Yeah. So, the director of this is a guy named John Flynn, and he's done a few things that you might know, like the infamous movie Rolling Thunder. And he also did a Steven Seagal movie, Out for Justice, which is actually one of the better Seagal ones, I think. And he did a movie that I really like, too, called Bestseller, with James Woods and Brian Dennehy, where Brian Dennehy plays a crime author that a hitman comes to talk about his crimes.
Okay.
And now the screenplay on this was by Andrew Kevin Walker. You may know him from a few movies like Seven, Sleepy Hollow, 8mm, and most importantly, Hideaway, the terrible Dean Koontz adaptation with Jeff Goldblum and Alicia Silverstone.
Wow. Why you have to throw that out there? He can't have everything can be a hit. I mean, Sleepy Hollow, that's a pretty tight movie.
Yeah, the Sleepy Hollow and Seven money are keeping him going at night, I'm sure. It's not the Hideaway money. He also did uncredited stuff on Fight Club, Stir of Echoes, The Game, and Event Horizon. I like to think he's the guy who came up with Lawrence Fishburne's line on that about "we're leaving."
I can't get over the whole "you gotta bring up The Hideaway" and how I just skipped over. I'm like, yeah, hello, he did Sleepy Hollow. Totally skipping over 7, which was like huge when it came out.
Oh yeah, that movie was insane.
My God, everyone was talking about that movie forever.
That was the year of Kevin Spacey, was 1995, because he had that and The Usual Suspects out in the same year. And no one even knew he was in 7 because they never advertised it. Then he just showed up and you were like, oh shit, this is where it's going to go bad. Never trust Kevin Spacey in a movie. ... Yeah.
So, now this movie coming out in 1994, for those of you that were not alive during that time,
or were very young.
You know, having a computer in your house was like a big fucking deal. So you already know that this kid, like, his dad was rich. Like, he had money because he had like a whole like gamer setup. You know,
he didn't just have a computer; he had a modem in his house. That was special back then. Not just everybody had a modem. Somebody might have a computer with a word processor program on it that they wrote some shit on, but not everybody had a modem. You had to be a real uber nerd to have one of those back in 93, 94.
Well, he was a misfit uber nerd. And, you know, and we always talk about this when we watch these films where, like, there's a kid in it and they show the room and the room is, like, the fucking size of, like, a fucking New York studio. Like,
at least he was living in, like, the attic of the house.
I'm sorry, a New York studio back in the day. Not now where people are living in closets for, like, $10,000 a month. Yes, that's right. Like,
he was living in the attic and he just had the entire attic to himself, which was fine, which meant they didn't have to show the rest. They had to show like the couple of rooms downstairs and his attic room. They didn't have to show the rest of the house.
Parent absent. He's traveling, just leaves them like messages and whatnot. So that clears away. When writing for especially like a teenage character, you know, you don't want the parents involved because the parents back in the day, they were all in your fucking face. They didn't know where you were. You could go on site and play for like 20 hours. I just need to know you play with Billy. I'm going to be with Billy out front. Like, we're going to be playing. Or I'm going to go over to, you know, Jason's house to play video games. Okay. But like you know, depending on the parent, you had to like check in, you know, with the beeper or like, you know, pick up the phone at your friend's house. The moms had to talk. It was like a whole thing. So he had like uber freedom and he had this computer, like he was living a dream, and he had a telescope where he was peeping the girl, the girl next door.
He was peeping and creeping on the neighbor girl.
Yeah, which, you know, but to be fair, she was also peeping and creeping on him. So they both like were into each other. So it wasn't like this weird thing. I mean, it was and it wasn't.
They were into watching each other across the way too. It's a little weird, but hey, you know, you do you.
Yes, very Disturbia actually, yeah. Which obviously throwback to Vertigo, but not Vertigo. Rear Window. I'm so sorry. So now, saying that, there was a game that came out in 1991 called Nightmare or Atmosphere.
Yes.
And that was an interactive game.
On your VCR.
On your VCR, yes. And not only that, you had Max Headroom in, you know, the late 80s, early 90s.
Yeah.
And you also had, you know, you would call in. Calling in, I remember so many commercials for like the freaking Dateline, like Friends Talk, like all kinds of like, you would call in, you know, like that whole, that's why like 976 Evil was a thing, that other film, which is not good. But did we cover that?
Yeah, we did.
We did. Yeah, it was really terrible. But yeah, so having this whole interactive thing where it's like a CD-ROM, I was like, whoa, CD-ROM.
And you used your modem with the CD-ROM to call into something too. And like all things back at the time, these games did way more than was possible with computers at the time.
Oh, yeah.
It's like in Hackers where they take like a 3.5-inch floppy disk and use that to hack like major computer systems. You're like, that only holds like 3.5 gigabytes or 3.5 megabytes of data. You can't get a real program on that thing, you know? But this, in 1994, he's calling in on the modem, which was probably at most like a 28.8 modem at the time, and calling in and getting all this downloads and doing all this crazy stuff on it. And you're like, that just wasn't a thing. But not enough people had computers back then and knew enough that they could just be like, oh, well, he's rich, he's got a badass computer, he can do that.
No one was going on, you know, the social media to, like, correct the shit that they see wrong. Because, you know, maybe you wrote a letter. Maybe I'm sure there was one guy that wrote a letter.
Dear sir, I don't think you really understand computers.
The portrayal of the computers in this film is just...
That's just disrespectful.
Unbelievable. Totally incapable. So... Now you have Michael, which is 80 Furlong.
That's what I did for long.
You know, loves horror films. Has a horror film club, which is pretty fucking dope in the school.
Yeah,
and which the principal is like not about it. He was showing his film crew the most mundane, like black and white fucking old film, and the teacher was like, what is this obscenity? Like, he was just so taken back by, like, how dare you bring this into the school? And I'm like, he acting like he brought Texas Chainsaw Massacre into the school. And it's a black and white film. It was not, like, what you would think that would just... But back in the day, that was like...
Oh, they were going to freak out over that kind of thing.
Yeah, that was a huge thing.
Now, I love that they say the name of the movie is Death, 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 Part 2. Which is actually, it's a movie called The Dracula Saga from 1973. It's a Spanish movie.
Which may have been a wink to Franklin Joe.
Yeah, like, hey, Dracula.
Hey, Dracula. Dracula's on set, and let's have this Dracula movie. Now, the CD-ROM, the Brainscan.
You have to order it from the back of a magazine.
Yes, which that was another big thing, ordering things.
Oh, yeah.
Get it Columbia catalog. House.
Oh, God.
Get the 20 CDs for
a penny.
For a penny.
But you had to put the penny on. They would return that shit if you didn't put the penny because it was very important.
And, you know, he's just... The Brainscan comes on and it's kind of like crazy how... It reminds me of that, like, Johnny Mnemonic, which came out like a year later.
Yeah.
Lawnmower Man, another. The technology of the film is just very bad. Like, it's obviously a film of its time.
The 90s CGI, the time has not been kind to it.
No, and this is a perfect movie, Hollywood, I don't give a shit about Rotten Tomatoes. Like, I never check that. I'm gonna watch the movie regardless of what whomever's out there actually going into Rotten Tomatoes leaving like reviews. But this had like a 13%, like whatever, low splat rate or whatever the rating is. It's just fucking terrible. It was just really terrible low rating. And I'm like, this is a perfect film for a remake. But it's VR.
Yeah.
And there you go. You update it and the concept is still good. So the Brainscan game, you are a serial killer. It's a POV of the serial killer, and you're going around. Your objective is to like murder whoever it is that they're telling you to murder.
Yeah, you just have to go to a random house and kill someone, and he cuts his foot off as a trophy. Yeah, it was wild.
Yes. So now he kind of gets out of it, and then the next day sees on the news, oh shit, there was a horrendous murder and a foot was cut off. And then he is freaking the fuck out because he's like, oh my god, what did I do? And then he finds like the foot like in the freezer or some crazy shit. And that's where the insanity ensues.
Because of course he thought he was just playing the game, but whoops, he went out and did it.
Yeah, the virtual reality part. And it's like how the brain scan, like the waves are like fucking with your reality. and you think you're doing these things. Are you not? You know, it's not really clear because they sell it to the point where it's just like, oh my god, this fucking kid. Like, even to the point where they show him, he's like not there. Like, he left. And his friend, he has a best friend, and they're really into that, horror movies and kind of shit, and he tells his best friend about it. And unfortunately, his best friend gets caught in the crossfire.
Because after you left out a part. After he plays the game, runs into Frank Langella, the police detective, and figures out, oh shit, this murder really happened. It just wasn't in the game. He's freaking out. He tries to call up the Brainscan again to find out what's going on. That's when the trickster appears.
Yes, who we did not mention.
Yeah, he's played by a guy named T. Ryder Smith, who has done a lot of character work and stuff over the years, a lot of voice work. He is the voice of Baron Underbite in The Venture Brothers, which if you've watched that show, you'll know exactly how crazy he is in that. But the trickster arrives in a magnificent flourish of 90s CGI and Primus music, which again is more, you don't get much more 90s than Primus.
No, you don't. He
pops in and is like, oh, hello, I'm the trickster. I'm here to guide you through this game and teach you what you need to know. And, he's basically kind of playing like a little bit of a Freddy Krueger character and a little bit of a Joker kind of guy that's like, I'm going to manipulate you into doing this.
Yeah, he pops out of the TV, guys. Like, he's, like, animated in the TV, and, like, his head, like, Max Headroom. And then he fucking just pops the fuck out, and here he is. And he's, like, the introduction, because he's, like, oh, he's looking through his music, and it's just, like, this is shit music that you have, and then whips out with his own fucking crazy tape. And it's just like, what is going on right now? And this guy looks crazy. And, while I'm watching the movie...
I love his, like, crushed velvet smoking jacket that he's wearing. Yeah. Like, it's like a maroon, like, I'm sorry, a mauve, like, purplish jacket that he's wearing. He's got, like, a mohawk, and he's got, like, a cross earring and everything. Like,
I would love to see this cosplay.
Yeah, this would be a great one. I love his line in it where he's like, look, you can do whatever you want to me, but just don't make me listen to country music, okay? I have my limits.
Now, I wonder if he's related, which is Howie Mandel in this movie, to the guy from Little Monsters, because every time I see the trickster in this movie, all I think about is Howie Mandel in Little Monsters, because it's like, they look like they could be somehow related.
Same makeup guy.
Yeah, like, no, one's blue, the other one's whatever. They look different. It's just, they look like they could be part of the same, like, world, like Monster World.
Yeah.
But you don't really get any answers if you're one of those people where, like, where did this guy come from? Who was the trickster? What is his origin? Like, where did this brain? Yeah, he tied into the
game and all this.
What? None of that. You're not going to get.
There's a
answers.
reason why at the end, but we're not going to say why. In case you haven't seen this, it's still worth seeing. And if you didn't figure it out beforehand, then it's kind of a nice little twist at the end.
I was going to say the movie's 30 years old. You should just give it up. But you're okay. That's fair. Let's give him. Go have an adventure. That was the best, not to get off the subject, but wasn't that the best time? Like, it's the weekend. You get in your car or hop on a bus or walk to the nearest video store and you just pick something up. You read the back of, the tape. Well, at the time, the tape, later on it would be DVD. Box, and then you see, oh, this shit looks interesting, and you would just take it home. And I would take home like stacks, and like, this is what I'm doing, like, on a Saturday night. I'm just sitting and like watching like movie after movie after movie. I miss those days, because now, yeah, whatever, it's there, it's streaming, but there's no excitement to it, even at the beginnings of Netflix. You would wait in the mail for your DVDs, yep. Like, oh, they're coming in the mail in that fucking little paper, thing with the little envelope that had like a little synopsis of the film or whatever. It was great. Those were great times.
You've requested a TV series, you're like, the first 3 discs are here. I've got to watch those, and then I got to hurry up and watch the first one, return it, so the next one will be here when I get ready. you're waiting for it because I was trying to burn through a couple of TV shows and it was exciting.
Yeah, I never did any TV shows. I was just all about the movies because I didn't have the attention span for that. Like, no, but I'm interested. Wait, was it the X-Files you were waiting for? What were you waiting?
No, I just bought the X-Files straight out.
Oh, okay.
It was other things that weren't available, like that really weren't out. The kind of expensive, like Carnival was on there.
Oh, Carnival, that's really
that was
good.
one I was waiting on to watch and that kind of stuff.
So yes, the good old days. So back to the movie. When was the last time you actually seen this film?
Probably when it came out. I haven't watched it really since it was originally released. I saw it. I don't think it came to Joplin when I lived there. When its initial run, we got it when it came to the Dollar Theater.
Wow.
Which was a couple of months later. Which again, kids, back in the day, movies used to play for months in the theater instead of just like 3 or 4 weeks.
Or a day, like some of these movies. Like it's like 2 days and it's out because they didn't make $1 bajillion.
Yeah, so, after they would play for a while in the regular theater, they would go to the Dollar Theater or $1.25, something like that, where it would be like, I'm going to say Twisters, since that just came out. And after Twisters was in the theater for like 6 months, it would go to the Dollar Theater and be there for another couple of months, where all the people that didn't see it then would go pay $1 for it,
Now, obviously, Brainscan did not come through Netflix because that did not exist at the time, and he got it through the back of the magazine. So, he has to keep calling to get the next CD-ROM in the series to finish the series because you can't leave it undone. And the Churchers is not going to let you. You have to keep, and he manipulates him to keep playing, and the more that he plays, the more, murders he has to commit. And
the more he incriminates himself.
Yeah, he does. And Frank Langella, let me tell you, he's like this kid. Every time I blink my eye, here's this fucking kid on the fucking crime scene. Like, what the hell? So he suspects the kid right off the bat, even to the point where I feel like he committed not a crime, but he broke into the kid's house to get some crime. Okay, he broke into the kid's house to get some evidence. No warrant, just like came through the back door, got what he needed, and fucking left. And I'm like,
the door wasn't locked. It wasn't breaking and entering, but it was just unlawful entry.
Unlawful entry. He was just entering. So yeah. So and then the girl next door. The whole thing with the trickster is like, oh, you left evidence behind, or someone saw you. Like, he's always like fucking with him and telling him like he has to go back and like, clean up the evidence or take out the person that supposedly may have seen something, and he has him do that, and Frank Langella is not. He's on his tail.
He's got the posse out looking for people in the woods and all that, which he gives them the whole, we called it the Haddonfield speech about don't bring any guns out here, folks. Of course, what do the rednecks do?
He bringing a gun and drinking a beer. I'm like, are you serious right now? Y'all just drinking the beers, like walking around. The guy just randomly shoots him. Mind you, he's in the neighborhood at this point because it's not like he was it's dark and I'm in the forest. He was like on someone's property and the guy just came up, like just walked up, which was the dad of the best friend. Because Eddie Furlong had been on the best friend's property trying to get something. And like pulled like one of those, like, I love when someone gets caught in the old movies, right? And they're like in an alley or like they're in the back of the house, and there's always those big ass silver fucking cans that they always like smash against, and the garbage just goes over the floor and they like trip all over it and then they run away. I'm like, what the fuck is that about? Why are you getting the big ass ugly?
Just one of those tropes that they were like, oh, everybody recognize this is a trash can.
Yeah, it's just fucking what that happens. And then the neighborhood watch guy who's not supposed to have who's now going to jail for murder, by the way. He shoots the guy. Like, what if the guy was just going to take out his fucking trash? It wasn't like he was wearing a ski mask.
Yeah, well, he's out there looking around, and he had, kind of run across Eddie Furlong, who was hiding out there after trying to get some evidence back from the best friend's house. But still, it's just like it's one of those things. He just is like randomly firing guns off. The first person he sees, he's like he's going to shoot, and it's like, no, dude, don't do it.
No.
But yeah, this is a movie that was keying into a lot of fears at the time about people with video game violence too. Because at the time there was a video game that they'd been talking about for years called Harvester. That was going to be about you had to play a serial killer, and it was going to be the way they described it at the time was a little like Grand Theft Auto, where you're going to be just out roaming the town doing stuff randomly and murdering people at will and all this. The actual game came out, and that's not what it was. But there was all that talk about it, and people were like, oh my God, this game will turn people into murderers and all this. So I think they were trying to tap into that too, of all the just like they did when they were making the movies about Dungeons and Dragons and all that kind of stuff. They want to tap into that fear of, the video games are going to make everyone super violent and into murderers.
Yeah, and eat away. It's ruining. It's going to destroy the kids.
Won't someone think of the children?
Oh, gosh.
Yeah. But no, the movies, the effects don't hold up really well, and Edward Furlong is not the greatest actor in the world. But that's why, like you said, this would be one that would be really good for a remake. Put a little bit better actor in the lead role and update the effects a little bit. Which, to be fair, there wasn't really need for a lot of effects other than the trickster popping out of the TV.
That's the only effect, yeah.
And then they did a few other things here and there with like the trickster grabbing him and his hand exploding or something. But again, that you didn't have to do that. You could have just stuck with the effects of him popping out of the TV, So, like I said, the movie mostly holds up. I enjoy it. I would give it a solid 2.5 knives.
I agree. Solid 2.5 knives.
It's not the greatest movie you'll ever see, but it's by far not the worst. It's way better than the Rotten Tomatoes score.
No, I really like the concept. And, in 1994, this was like, oh shit, it was like, I don't want to say good movie, but it was like, okay, yeah, this is cool. This is a cool movie. And Eddie Furlong was in it. So, he was still hot, got off the T2, the hotness of being in T2 and whatnot. And you get to see him again. And, he was a cute guy. He was a cute guy. He was a quintessential, I feel like, 90s guy.
Yeah.
He definitely has that great 90s look. And it encapsulates a moment in time. So I give it, I agree with the 2.5 knives. But you should definitely check it out.
It's on Tubi right now, about not for how much longer, but it's in other places, I'm sure. And there's obviously some Blu-rays. I think Shot Factory might have actually put it out.
Probably cleaned it up a little bit. It looks great on the Tubi.
Yeah.
It didn't look bad at all. But yeah, I would love to see a remake. This is a film that I wouldn't mind a remake because it's not a classic.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You're not like, oh yeah, let's redo The Fog. Like, it's like, okay, we don't need to fuck with something that it's fine. This is like, yes, this is the one, and totally updated with the whole VR thing. And that would just make it just like, man,
VR and like with a social media thing, it's like like an online game where you're playing it and you put on VR goggles and you go in, you're playing it with other people. So then it like becomes the question of, are the people real, or are they people that you're in their neighborhood, or is it just fake people in the game? You can do all kinds of things with that.
Yeah, someone go do that. Well, thank you so much for joining us on another episode of Jumpscare, the horror podcast. Stay tuned to the horror.
And now, folks, it's time to say goodnight. We sincerely appreciate your patronage and hope we've succeeded in bringing you an enjoyable evening of entertainment. Please drive home carefully and come back again soon. Good night.